a beau, and a sweetheart, just as the clubs do today. And so that evolved eventually into being the homecoming queen, king, per se. And then it changed. They found themselves in need of, the school found itself in need of money, and I think the athletic department found itself in need of money. So they used to have each class select a person to run for homecoming queen. And it depended on how much money they could raise as to who would become homecoming queen. I don't know if they ever found out where the money went to, but you'd be surprised at how many people voted for them, $1 a vote. Of course, the senior class all supported, everybody put up $1 for the seniors, juniors. Then I guess all their mamas and papas and grandparents and aunts and uncles and friends donated to the cause. Or they'd make candy and sell it, or they'd make cookies and sell them. So that went on for quite some time. And then at that time, there were only 4. They picked 4. Somebody became queen. The other 3 were the attendants. We used to have parades, as you did. We built floats the way y'all do. We did one thing differently for once for a long time. When the car dealers were being very generous, we used to borrow convertibles for the girls to ride in. So they rode in convertibles in the parade, and then when we went out on the field that night, they went all around the field, and they came and they stopped in front of the bleachers. They got down, the cars drove up. They were crowned in front of the bleachers. Then they decided that we couldn't drive on the track anymore, so we had to forego the convertibles. We made a very pretty picture. It's beautiful, especially if you have a nice looking convertibles shined up. And then gradually, the number of people on the court increased. First, they decided they had to have 2 from the senior class and 1 from each other class. Then they decided they had to have 2 from the junior class and 2 from the senior class and 1. So it just kept increasing. I think now they have 2, 4, 6, 8, and a queen. 9, I think it's right. Still that way?
I think it's 8 actually. There's
It's 8 now.
1 freshman, 1 sophomore, 2 juniors, and 4 seniors.
They changed. It
changes all the time.
It fluctuates all the time. And the rules always change. And I had the dubious pleasure of writing all the scripts. Well, when there were just a few, we went into very much detail about how they dressed and what they wanted to do and blah, 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 blah. And the coaches would get together. We had a half hour. And sometimes even 45 minutes if it ran longer than that. The coaches would agree, okay, we can have that time. But now the athletic association, Louisiana Athletic Association says that you can have only whatever minutes it is for the half, that's it. I mean, you've got to stay within that limit. So we had to pare it down, cut it down. So now we have it down. But it used to be, coaches get together, they agree what they're going to do. They used to get together and agree how much they're going to charge for a game, too, but that's out of the window. Everybody pays the same. So that changed quite a bit.
Ms. Totten, tell them what you told me about the name Bearcats.
The Bearcat is I get this from Mr. Bowling because I don't know if I remember exactly the way it was, but they had a choice between the Bearcats and the what?
Phantoms.
The Phantoms. And there was a team in Texas called the Bearcats, and they kind of fell in love with this word, Bearcats. It sounded more aggressive than Phantoms. So they decided that Bearcats was going to be the name of the team. And I don't know how red and white came to be our colors, I don't remember. We always had red and white, as far as I know, for the team colors. As far back as I can remember, even before I was in high school, our teams were dressed either in red or white, so whatever. But the Bearcat thing comes from Texas, and I think it's the University of Houston or Rice University, I don't know which, that had the Bearcats. Whoever suggested it, I think they voted on it, on the faculty or the high school, I don't know who voted on it, but that's the way it came about.
And that didn't happen until we had a football team?
No, it was before
It was before that.
It was before that, but I don't know when exactly. Evidently it was after Mr. Bullock came, because he knows all about it. Talk about a man that can remember every detail, and he was one of my teachers. He's got a fabulous memory. You know, when you're going through something, you don't remember it all. I mean, you don't take notice of it enough to remember it. You called me and I had to go dig out some facts. I can tell you who the first homecoming queen was. Verta Marie Martin. The second one was Larry Starborn. The third one was Elda Mae Valet. The fourth one was Elaine Cart. The fourth one was, the third was Jane Spears. The fourth one was Elda Mae. The fifth one was Elaine Cart. The sixth one was Maxie Lejeune. And the seventh was Barbara Hargroder, who's Jimmy Pelican's girl. And after that, I didn't even look them up because it had so many. But that's the way it goes. Now, I don't know what time this ends. I brought some things over here that you might be interested in looking at.
You got about 6-7 more minutes.
That's what I figured. All right. I want to show you this if you want to look at it. You know, I don't know if you want to pass it around or not. This is the first jambalaya that was published. 1946-47. This is the old high school building. And in here, it has an honor roll of those who gave their lives in World War II, who were students from Basile High School, which I thought was a very nice touch. And then they had the faculty. We're all pathetic looking and very young. And then we had the seniors. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 seniors. Then it went up and then it came down, it goes up and it comes down. So if any of you are interested in seeing this, that's fine. All right, this one over here is 49. And this is the year that we switched between, we have the faculty and all this stuff in it, but this is the year we had 49 and 50, we had only 4 graduates. That is the year we switched from the 11th grades to the 12th grades. These boys.
Excuse me, please, I have an announcement. October the 15th, 16th, and 17th, there will be a hunter safety course in Basile at the town hall. On the 15th, which is Tuesday night, it will be from 7 to 10, and the following
3 boys. Billy McCann, Dewey Miller, and Wade Davidson chose to not take all their courses and graduate the year before. They wanted to come back and play football. I think it's called redshirting today. So they chose it. Wilda, I don't know why Wilda didn't finish. Maybe she just didn't have the units. They had to have 17 units in those days. So this is a little interesting too. This one over here is the first year that my picture's in high school, and it has a little bit of history in the of it. You can pass it around. And I brought this one for the simple reason I wanted to show you what your principal looked like when he was a senior in high school. I asked his permission and he said yes. And so I said, well, I think that they would like to see you when you were at your most athletic. Now this one is made from back to front, and I'll have to look through it to get what I'm looking at. Here is Mr. Johnny Jeans, number 85 on the football team. The buses came every day. When I was in about the 8th grade, we moved to another place. My father built his own home, and it was back in the woods, and I did walk about a mile. When the weather was good, I'd walk out and catch the bus at the other road that passed by. But no, I wouldn't say that I had to walk to school. Now, I remember things that happened where people had to walk. One year, when I was, I guess, in the elementary, one of the boys down below us, we lived on dirt roads, he wanted to graduate so bad. We had a flood, and there were no gravel roads or anything. He put on his suit that afternoon, it stopped raining, rolled his pants up to his knees, put his shoes, tied the strings together, put them around his neck, and he walked from 4 miles out of Basile, past our house, to come to graduation. I might say we didn't go that night because we couldn't get out. We got stuck. Where we lived, there was a bog, there was a mud hole. You don't know. My father, when we first moved there, my father kept a team. When it got that bad, he kept a team of horses or mules ready to pull people out.
Steve Miller, you have a phone call in the office?
Later on, when he had a tractor, he used
The
a
student,
tractor to pull
Steve
them out.
Miller.
Now, my sister was courting, somebody from Eunice was courting my sister. He used to bog regularly. My daddy always had that ready on Friday and Saturday night.
Well, before you go, do you know anything about the fight song? Who wrote the fight song?
I have no idea, but it didn't come about. It just came after
Football.
when football came.
Well,
Thank you
Ms.
for your
Stockton.
attention.
This is for you.
Oh,
She's the principal from WW Stewart, Miss Christine Bacon, formerly Christine Shamo. She's a past homecoming queen, 1971, 1972 homecoming queen. She's Ethan's mother, and she's going to tell you about her experience as a student here at Basel High School. So give her a big welcome.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Lejean, for inviting me to speak to this class. This is a very special class for me because some 9 years ago, when you were in kindergarten, you, boys and girls, and I started out together. You were my first class as principal at WW Stewart Elementary. And in case you haven't noticed, let me just tell you that I've been keeping my eye on you because I want to see what you will become. I'm interested in you. Since we started out together, I feel like I'm a part of your school life, not only when you were at Stewart Elementary, but I'll be a part of your school life until you graduate. So I hope you think of me that way too, and that if you ever need anything from me, if I can ever be of any help to any of you boys and girls, here I am. Mr. Lejean asked me to share some of my school experiences with you today. When I was in high school, I guess I was probably what you could consider to be totally dedicated and devoted student. And I'm not saying that to brag on myself, students, but I just want you to understand that school was the most important thing to me. The most important thing to me. Things happen to you when you're in school. You should be developing bonds, a friendship. You should be developing a school spirit. You should develop school pride. You should be accumulating some memories that you will reflect on whenever you're an adult. I think the things that I think back of whenever I give talks to people or whenever I'm just feeling kind of lonely or blue, whatever, the things that pull me through hard times are my high school memories. And I hope that you take time to develop some good ones for you, for yourselves. This is the composite picture of my class, the class of 1972. Like you, we were not a big class, small class, but we got real close to each other. And students, after we left high school, we didn't drift apart. We stayed close together. And whenever there's a hardship in any one of our lives, we're together for each other. Because a true class, a class that works on spirit and on being together, will always be together for each other. We all have a need to belong to something, to groups, to schools, should all feel welcome in your class, and you should all help to fulfill each other's need to belong by extending your hand out to each other. And I know once you get to be about your age in the 7th and 8th grade, in the 8th grade, but it kind of starts in 7th, probably today a little bit sooner than that, things start happening to you. You start changing, you're growing up, you're in between being a child and an adult, and it's a hard age to be. I can remember my 8th grade year very, very well. It wasn't a happy year for me as a student, but I learned a lot from it. That was a year in my school life when I was on the outside of the crowd. Have any of you ever felt that way? I'm sure you have, because I know what happens at this age. Cliques form, special interest groups form, and sometimes you're on the outside. You're not in the in group. And that's a bad feeling, and it was a hard thing for me to cope with. But I'm glad I went through that experience, because I didn't just say, well, they don't like me, I'll just stay on the outside the rest of my life. I learned how to get along with people. I worked at making friendships, and I worked at getting in and helping our group to become a close group. So if you're going through a time like that, don't despair. Don't give up on yourselves, and don't think that you're going to live the rest of your high school years like this, because you won't. But you do have to work at it. And you have teachers and you have people here that can guide you in that. Okay? On into high school, things started picking up a little bit for me as a student. Like I just told you, got closer to people, they got closer to me. Some of the things that happened in high school that I want to talk with you about are reflected here in this newspaper. And I don't know if any of you save newspapers, but I tell you, it's a wonderful thing to do, because I've spent many a pleasurable occasion looking at this newspaper. And when we have class reunions, everybody says, Christine, bring your newspapers. And we put them out on display for people to see. Okay, this was our senior page. And one day you're going to have one like this. Okay? I remember the day that I graduated from high school, I cried like a baby. I didn't want it to happen. I didn't want to leave school. School was my life. And I hope that some of you like school as much as I did. School is what you make out of it. You, at this age, are what you make out of yourselves. You've been influenced by teachers and parents and outsiders, friends, relatives. You've been influenced by a community. Now you're at the age where you've got to take everything you've learned, pull it together, and go with it. But you'll be here one day, graduating from Basel High School. And I wonder what you will be feeling about your school. It's up to you to make it what you want it to be, okay? In case you don't recognize her, this is Elisa's aunt. She was in the top 3, and this was another classmate. He doesn't live here anymore, Mr. Leland Landry, one of the most brilliant people I have ever met. I was the 3rd ranking student in my class. This paper also contains lots of old memories. I'll pass it around for you to look at. And there's something in here that I wanted to share with you, particularly because I don't see that being done anymore at Basel High School. There's probably a reason. I could see from reading some of ours that, things kind of got out of hand. But it was called our class will and prophecy, and if I can get to the right page, I'll show you what it looked like. Guess I won't find it. Well, anyway, here, I'll go ahead and pass this one around for you. Just look at it, see how things have changed a little bit from 20 years ago to today. But what we used to do at our junior-senior banquet, the juniors would prophesize what we would become, and we would will things to the juniors, and it was real fun. Oh, okay. It was real fun. It was a fun thing for us to do. That was it, yeah. I'll read a couple of them to y'all. See if I can get your attention with that. Christine Shamo, known for her great coordination and everlasting smile, will find fame and fortune when she opens up Shamo School of Charm. Well, they were picking on me because I'm not coordinated. I never could play basketball. I tried, but I couldn't manage to dribble and walk at the same time. we have another one. Raphael Klump, after many years of practice, will finally learn the Mamou two-step. French music, Cajun culture was a big part of our class. We believed in it in our music of choice, besides music from Temptation, Sam Cooke, that type of music. We liked French music. So we had our preferences too. When I was in high school, I had the honor of being a Basel High School cheerleader, so I brought my bee to show you. It's all yellowed now. Doesn't look pretty like it used to, but it still means the same thing to me as it did years ago. Things are a little different about the way cheerleaders are selected from whenever I was in high school. The first time I tried out, I was a freshman, very nervous. We tried out in front of the whole student body, and they voted on us. Well, I didn't make it. So I practiced harder, and I had some special tutoring from Miss Candace Klump. She was Candace Fontenot at that time, and she helped me work on my coordination. And the next time I tried out, we didn't try out in front of the student body. We tried out just in front of the pep squad, and I made it. And I was a cheerleader for the rest of my high school years. It was a very big honor for me to be a cheerleader. And I hope that those of you, I know we have some junior high cheerleaders in here, that you always fulfill your responsibility to your school as a cheerleader. You are a leader of the school. Cheerleaders, pep squad members, well, actually the whole student body, need to work together on school spirit. Because a school without spirit is not a school. It's just a place. It's a building. It's like a shell. It doesn't have those special vibrations that make you proud to be part of the school. This is your school, boys and girls. I still feel like I'm a part of this school. When changes happen at this school that upset me, makes me think, well, you know, we've got to still be active in our school life even after we've graduated. So work on your school spirit. It'll pay off in the long run. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about sports whenever I was in high school. I know it's a big interest to y'all. Boys had everything, girls. We didn't have girls track. All we had was girls basketball. And if you couldn't play basketball, well, sports was out of the picture for you. Totally out. So you're fortunate that, you know, girls have a bigger role in school athletics. You have chances to go out there and compete. We didn't. Instead of asking for a track team whenever I was in high school, we asked for a powder puff football team. How silly. What were our chances of that? But we could just picture ourselves out on the football field, girls playing football. Maybe one day, I don't know. But track would have been a more reasonable thing to ask for. And had we thought to ask for that, we probably would have, gotten it. These are still some more old school newspapers, and if Mr. Lejean will be careful with them, I'll be glad to leave them with you so that you can look at them a little bit in more detail. Other changes that have happened in school, I can remember when the Basel Weekly, and it still is pretty much a school newspaper, but we had a whole page and it was called School News. And everybody did a little part in the paper. We had a reporter from a student sports writer who always did a little sports write-up, and each class did their class news in the school newspaper. Might be something that we could work on again. And we had a student council. Do we still have a student council?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That met. We even had pep squad news, cheerleader news, all the different clubs. Put a little section in the newspaper. Okay. This is just another newspaper that I'll leave with you. This is my memory book. And probably some of the most outstanding memories that anybody might have are not written down in a book. They're just part of you. Memories become part of what you are. Part of the way you think of yourself, part of what you probably hope to become. And we wrote down some good things and some bad things, and I can't read everything to y'all that's written in my memory book. But we had things like this. Christine, I will always remember the good times we had and all our problems. Let's stick together. Our class motto was stick together. And we had a song, and it was the thumbs up. And whenever we met each other, anywhere, you know, if we're driving through town, if you didn't give thumbs up, boy, what's your problem? And when we met each other at school, we had a little handshake. Jana, put your thumb up. And we do this, you know, that was our class of 72 handshake. And it meant stick together, and we still are sticking together. It's because we worked at it. But most of these comments are on, remember the good times. Don't forget me, is what people are saying in this memory book. Always remember me. We always, all of us want to be remembered. We all want to be special to somebody. When I was in high school, my senior year, I had the distinct honor of being chosen homecoming queen. So I brought my crown to you to show you. And we were voted on, I think it's the same procedure that is used now. We were voted on by the football team. But it was a little different. It was announced ahead of time. It was not announced on the football field homecoming night. We knew in advance who the maids were and who the homecoming queen was. We had one maid from each class and the homecoming queen. So our court was much smaller than it is now. And I think it's good. I think it's a good change that the court is bigger. I think it makes, you know, more people to have an opportunity to be recognized. But this crown, it's bent now, and it doesn't shine as much as it used to, and it's broken because I have a little daughter who thinks she's a princess and she likes to wear it around the house. But this is very, very special to me because this signified that people thought of me in a way that made them feel like I should represent the school. So whenever you're chosen students to represent your school, you need to make sure that you do that well. And do honor to yourself, do honor to your school. And one day, one of you girls will wear a homecoming crown. And now we also have homecoming king, which was something we didn't have, and I think that's one of the best changes. Because the boys in the class, whether they compete in sports or whether they choose not to do that, are part of the class and have a lot to do with the spirit, because if they can get fired up, haven't you noticed when the boys can get fired up, people really take notice. They pay attention. Us girls, you know, we always like to scream and shout and make noise and clap and put on a show, but boys tend to be a little more reserved. So when you show your spirit, you really have an impact on the school. So I hope that you do this and do it well. The last thing I want to talk to you about are the teachers that I had as a student at Basel High School. And some of the rules that we have. I can remember one time at recess, standing out, and you know, we all went out for recess. We didn't stay inside of a building unless the weather conditions were absolutely terrible. Then we all gathered in the old gym. So try to picture the old gym. Some of you probably don't remember what it looked like when it was in good shape. It's gone down right now, as most things do with age, including us. But that's where we gathered. Sometimes at recess, we would entertain each other. We had a group of boys that were very, very talented musicians. So sometimes we'd go in the auditorium and they would put on a little performance for us. And it was like having a concert at recess, if you can imagine that. But our principal let us do this, and it worked out real well, and we had a lot of fun and got into the music. But school was different. The rules were different. Society was different. I can remember one recess in particular. Mr. Jimbo and I were standing out at recess and just standing side by side, and he did like he was going to throw me in the mud puddle. Well, our principal got real upset and walked up to us and said, hands off, you know, like, wow. Girls and boys did not touch each other at recess, even in a joking way. Things were a lot, I guess, in a way, more strict. Rules were more defined than they are now. We had the old high school building, and I see Mr. Lejean has a picture of it. It was a beautiful, beautiful building. And you have a beautiful high school today, too, but our building was different. It's two-story. And I can remember the girls had a stairway and the boys had a stairway. And if Miss Totten caught you going up the wrong set of stairs, even if it was to keep yourself from being late for class, you were in big trouble. So, you know, a lot of little things that, you know, you kids probably just take for granted. You have, you know, you can socialize more, and you have the same access to facilities and things we didn't back then. And I can still remember what the halls looked like, the smell of the floors, the way things looked, the oldness of the building. But the building was special, and when they tore it down, you know, part of our hearts, those of us who went to that school, we just, you know, I guess some of us even probably cried because we saw it going down. Things have to change. We understand that. We had teachers at school when I was in high school, and like Miss Totten, who taught a class just before y'all. We had Mrs. Elford. She was our pep squad sponsor, and I'll never forget one day, one football game, the pep squad didn't want to listen. And I was a cheerleader, and I just yelled at them, "Everybody shut up." Well, I got a demerit for saying that, and I deserved it. That's not a way to talk to people. It's rude, but it's just to give you an example of what was expected of us, and what was considered rude then may not be considered or may not be acted upon as being rude. But we were taught to have the highest amount of respect for ourselves as possible. And that's something everybody needs to do, because if you respect yourself, other people will respect you too. We had a teacher, and you had the opportunity to know him, and I guess in a way he probably had the biggest impact on school spirit at Basel High School, and that was Coach Mack. I remember when he came, he was like our buddy. He was the person that said, "Oh, come on, let those kids be kids," and he encouraged us to have spirit. And if we didn't have spirit, he came up to us and said, "What's the matter with you? I need you. I need your spirit. You know, we can't just have 2 or 3 people with spirit. We need the whole school." And he stayed on us and stayed on us and stayed on us. And if he saw us slip up, that was it. He came out of the pep rallies, and I can still see him walking. And we had the same spirit stick. It wasn't a big pencil like y'all have now. It was probably a broom handle that had been painted red and white. Things were more homemade in our day, not as finished as it is now. We didn't have as much talent probably as we do have now. But anyway, he'd walk out and he'd do like this, and he'd just hit it in his hand. And when he walked out with that spirit stick, it was silence, because every class wanted that spirit stick more than anything else. To get the spirit stick was the biggest honor that could be bestowed upon the class, and believe me, we all worked for it. And then the cheerleaders came out, much like they do today, and they did the battle cry. We did that. And then he would award it. And he just had such a positive impact on us. He brought us to church. He taught us to pray. I'm glad to see that today one of his old customs, and I really think it started with him. I don't remember it happening before him. The day of the football game, we went to church and we had a little prayer service and a rosary. And that's back today. And I think we owe that to Coach Mack, that memory that somebody had of him sparked that person to start that up again. So memories are important. School spirit is important. And you have some teachers in your lives right now that you think, he's too strict. She doesn't understand. She expects too much out of me. You think that right now. But when you graduate and you think back, you'll say, "Thank you for that strictness. You kept me out of trouble. Thank you for expecting so much out of me. Look what I've become." And that's how it goes. Things that you don't appreciate right now, you'll come to appreciate. But if I can leave you with one message, students, it's the message of the importance of school spirit. You have to have it. It doesn't just fall down on you. You've got to go looking for it. You're not going to catch it from somebody else. You have to feel free and positive about your school. You have to feel good about yourself so that you can express how you feel about your school. I'm going to try to come to Pep Rally Friday, and I hope that the 8th grade class gets the spirit stick. And I hope that one little thing I said today helps you to remember the importance of school spirit. Now, if you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them.
Tell them what you did as a class or as cheerleaders or whatever to express your school spirit. What were the type of things that y'all did? I don't think they have a grasp of what it is to express school spirit. How do you do that?
Well, we had a pep rally every Friday, like you do. But we had pep rallies at every recess, too. And, you know, we didn't come dressed in our uniforms every day. In fact, on the day of the pep rally, we had to go change. We could not wear our uniform because it was short skirts. We changed just before the pep rally. But we would get together outside. And there's something about being outside that just, I don't know, we feel more comfortable, or we did. Anyway, we'd all gather around the whole school, around the flagpole or around the trees or whatever, and we would do our chants. And we would actually practice our yells, and of course we got laughed at and picked at and all that too. But school spirit didn't just happen on Friday. It was a build-up all week long. We did posters like you do. We had poster parties. Everybody in the school, every pep squad member for sure, and every cheerleader had to bring a certain number of posters and put them up. And I notice over here, you know, y'all do a lot of decorating. And that helps. You know, when you walk into a building and you see all the posters and everything, it just puts you in the mood. Other things that we did for school spirit, we tried to do special little things for the athletes. It was important to have spirit, I guess. If you didn't, you were looked down upon. Now, I think some people are kind of embarrassed to show their spirit. And they feel like, oh, people are going to think I'm being silly. And some of us are shy. Believe it or not, I used to be shy too. But all of these things are things you have to work at. You've got to go out there with the positive, just have the positive attitude. I guess really the only thing we did different, Miss Lejeanne and students, is that we did chants and things at every recess, every day, not just at the pep rally. Any other questions?
And posters were put up every week and that
Every
sort of thing. See, I know you're walking in during homecoming week. This is a big thing for homecoming week, but this is not normal. What you see is not what normally goes on.
Well, our school looked like this every week. We decorated our cars too. You know, that you have to be careful with that. But we did put the posters in, and part of the spirit stick had to do with how much spirit you showed, not only at the pep rally, but little things that you would do during the week. Sure, it was unthinkable not to put up the posters, and some of them, you know, you try to be creative whenever you make posters. And I noticed that posters today have more to do with little sayings that you have. But our posters concentrated on spirit. And, you know, we had a little cheer, have you got that spirit? Yeah, man. Have you got that spirit? Yeah, man. Well, let me hear it. You know, and then you do the yell. A lot of little chants and things. Let's see if I can remember some of them. Boy, I tell you, 20 years ago, we had one, and it was, have you got that spirit? And then you had to show where it was. It's in my head. That's what I said. It's in my shoulder. It makes me bolder. It's in my eye. Oh, my. And everybody had to come up with a way of expressing, you know, the spirit. And that's what we did at recess, y'all. And it sounds silly to y'all. And the ones that y'all come up with would probably be much, much better than ours. But that's what we did at recess. We lined up outside, and cheerleaders did their thing and clapped, and everybody just participated. Our cheers were a lot different, too, than the chants that we see today. Some of them were real silly. And if I could sing, I might do one for y'all. I don't know. Any other questions?
Did you always know you wanted to be a teacher? Was that something that you've always known?
No. I always knew I wanted to be part of a school. And, you know, I wasn't sure, you know, what it would be. Now I realize. Sometimes you just don't realize things until you get where you are and you stop and you think, there's no way I could have been anything else, because school has just always been such a part of my life. And, you know, I'd like to do my part to make school special for kids, so that when they grow up, they can feel the same way that I do about it.
You and Mr. Jimbo were always sweethearts in high school?
Right. We started dating, I guess, our junior year.
You have a question, Douglas?
Yeah. You ever got in any fights?
Did I ever get in any fights? Douglas, I never got in any fist fights. I'm sure I got into arguments with people, but I never fought. I know people who did, though. We didn't have a lot of fighting in high school. Most of the fighting that we had, though, from what I can remember, it wasn't between the boys. It was between the girls. And it was isolated, you know. usually a flare-up over probably a boyfriend or something like that, and then it was settled. But we got along. People were very, very close, but we worked at it. And it wasn't easy to be close because we grew up in some very, very troubling times. A lot of changes were happening when I was in school, a lot of changes. And I think, maybe in part, some of those changes may have brought about the feelings of closeness that we had because we knew if we didn't work together, things would just fall apart and there wouldn't be a school. Anything else?
Something you want to ask?
I'm looking at Brandon's tag. We always did homemade tags. Everything was homemade. Our cheerleader uniforms were homemade. Pep squad uniforms were homemade. The tags were homemade. The spirits did. Whenever you create something, and it is part of what you actually do with your mind and your hands, I think that it has more meaning to you. And, purchase things are real pretty. They probably have a prettier effect. But when you actually do it, and the cheerleaders got together every week and we designed the tags, and maybe that would be a good project for the school. Each class could design the tag, and we ran them off on the old Ditto machine in the teacher's lounge, and then everybody had to color their tag. And, it was kind of like a contest to see who could make their tag look the best. And I saw the big homecoming tags right now. Those are pretty. But when you make something and it's part of you, it just means more. So those are good. Bearcats #1 killed the Panthers.
Oh,
Douglas.
y'all had computers and typewriters and stuff?
Oh, that's a good question, Douglas. We did not have computers. Few people knew what a computer was when I was in high school. Mr. Landry was my math teacher, and in advanced math, he gave us a little course on how computers are designed around the binary number system. But yes, we had typewriters, and they are not anything like the typewriters y'all have today. They were manual. I don't remember any electric typewriters in typing class. They were all manual, and the keys got stuck together. And if you had small hands like I did when I was in high school, it was hard to make your finger reach those top keys, those top corner keys. So you have much, much better things, boys and girls. You have computers, you have better equipment to work with, and that's good. It shows that your community is supporting education. You probably don't think of it that way. You think school is a place we go to. It's here. We don't want to be here sometimes. You don't think what goes into making the school run, and I didn't realize those things either until I became an administrator and had to actually run a school. The classes that we took were pretty much the same. Curriculum wasn't much different. Of course, the content was different, but we still had English 1, English 2, 3, and 4, and same math courses. You have more courses than we did. We did not have computer literacy. We didn't even have computers. Girls could not take industrial arts or ag. That came after I graduated from high school. Girls took girl courses like home ec, and the boys didn't take home ec. We don't have home ec at all anymore. But they did not let us go into ag. I guess we weren't supposed to be around animals, and we were not allowed to take the industrial arts courses. But we didn't even really consider that. We hadn't become, we hadn't reached the stage of questioning those things. That's how it was, and we did. We did have a senior play. It was a little different than it is today. Do they still have senior
We haven't had senior plays in years.
Well, Mrs. Totten was our senior sponsor, and we had a senior play, and it was an actual stage production. And I played the leading role in the play, and my name was Wilbur. I played a boy's role because Miss Totten didn't trust any of the boys to learning that many lines. And my hair was short, so I put on a cap and a big sweatshirt, and we had a good time with it.
Yeah, the talent show.
We had a talent show, yeah, and you'll see some of the pictures in there. They were real funny. We did a lot of crazy things. We used a lot of music in our talent show, but not as much as you see today. We did more skit type things. We didn't have proms when I was in high school. no proms. We had what was called the junior senior banquet. We did a tremendous amount of decorating. When I was a junior, we put the banquet on for the seniors, and the theme was Evening in Paris. And we made an Eiffel Tower that touched the ceiling of the old gym. And we strung lights up on the inside of it. We made it out of chicken wire, and we stuffed it with what was called these pumps. It looked like little squares of tissue paper. We stuffed that. We had hedges all the way around the gym. You know, it was to see which class could come up with the most elaborate decorations. Everything was a lot of perfection and more. And we served a meal at the banquet. We still had an athletic banquet. We did have, when I was your age, in 8th grade, we had little hops, we called them, sock hops, in the old gym. That made me think of something else I wanted to talk to y'all about. After the football game, we all went there, and we had our teachers as our chaperones.